Hello and welcome to this video lesson for my acoustic guitar arrangement of Jingle Bells, from easy-esque to, let's say, less easy. This is a repetitious tune, and every time there's a repetition, I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go twice through the tune. So the idea here being, if you're a beginner, you can kind of take the easier ideas and play through a whole arrangement, or if you're a little more intermediate or advanced, you can take these other ideas. You can also kind of compare and contrast, see what I'm doing to make it more interesting. I will talk a little bit about those techniques as we go through it, but let's hear how it sounds. You might like it, you might not, who knows. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's Jingle Bells, from easy-esque to less easy. Let's talk really quickly about the form of this tune. So we all know Jingle Bells, there's kind of an A or a verse and a B and a chorus, but we also divide that part up, right? We have, the A is basically just repeated. We have da 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 C da, then we're still on C, da 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 ba da 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 G, right? Just G, C, and D. That repeats, I think, completely the same. Ba da 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 ba da 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 da. Right, that's our verse. Just 2 repetitions of A. Then we go into the B section, the chorus section. Ba da 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 da. Then we have a C chord, do 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 do. Now this part's a little different the second time, but we go A chord, then a D. Right. The second time, the last time through the tune, this chorus section is a little different because we don't want to end on a D, we want to end on a G. So we get a ba da 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 da, then C chord da da, G chord, then a D chord, then a G. Right? So I go twice through the whole tune. So you can think of it as like A A B B A A B B. That would be the whole thing. Now let's talk a little bit about the techniques that I'm doing here. Mostly what I'm doing is I'm picking the melody. And then when there's a moment of pause, I just strum the chord, right? Relatively simple. Now, other techniques that I'm doing is I let the highest note of the chord be the melody note. So it's really obvious in this part. Right? I'm just kind of strumming the chord, but only stopping on that highest note. So that's a really easy way to do this kind of chord melody thing. You let your highest note be the note that you want, or you play a melody and strum the note. So boo da do da do, or I could put that lower. Ba da dee da do. There we go. Now I get a little bit more tough. The next step I do in here is just adding arpeggios. So if I have a melody note, there's my melody note. I'll just, instead of strumming the chord, I'll just arpeggiate, pick the notes. So this. That's pretty much just doing these arpeggios. That's a nice way of thickening out. You also get a chance to play a bit with the rhythm. Next kind of step is I start throwing in syncopation. So you'll see this instead of, I go, right? There's a little hammer-on that one, another thing that you can do to add into it. Now we get a little bit more tough. We start into adding more single note lines in here. right? So instead of, you get, oops, right? I'm just kind of adding notes to connect them, right? And that's very obvious when I get into this, what is this line that I do? So in the tune, the easy version I have here is, right? But here I'm just kind of adding extra notes. And that's a really important thing, especially in bluegrass tradition with flat picking guitar, is because if you're not strumming the guitar, you don't have much control of your volume or just rhythm. You know, when you're singing a note, you can kind of make it louder. The guitar just kind of plink and fades away. So if we want to keep the energy up and want to keep control of this stuff, we just play a lot more notes. Just fit all the notes in between. You know, if we're going from a D to a B, you can just add chromatic notes or connect it with scale notes, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of that. There's a couple of things I'll say is there's a little bit of reharmonization in there that I'll talk about, especially in the last B section, where I'm adding some reharmonization. Also in the last B section, we have a little bit of counterpoint, where I'm having the melody and then an extra melody that's happening kind of alongside with it. But that said, let's blow through this. I'm going to throw up the tablature. Rah! Okay, this is the A section. So first line sounds like this. So notice I'm holding this G chord already, and I'm doing it kind of a little bit like a C variation here. Oh. And the only real tough thing to notice is that I'm strumming these, I'm holding the chords pretty much every time that I've got the chord going. One thing I wanted to mention, oh yeah, notice I'm not even holding the whole C. It's because I never really try to play the low notes of the chord, especially if they're a lot lower than the melody that I'm playing. So this is my melody note. So I don't really want to play, it's a little distracting. So I just play the higher notes. And it's not so important that you hit, I have, I think, 4 notes written there. It could just be high notes. You just hit the top notes. That's not important at all. Okay, next line. Now this D you might not be familiar with, but it's very useful. Very useful D, learn this one. Also this G, I'm just getting the top 3 notes of this bar shape. That's also a little bit tough. This might be the toughest little bit if you're a beginner. Okay, let me play that line one more time. Okay, going on. This is starting the same way. So here, first off, we've got this bluegrassy line that's in the middle of there, just when we have a pause instead of strumming the chord. Why not play a little line? Or a boo-da-dee-da, boo-da-dee-da-do. It's just the same melody, but we're just having some like hammer-ons, pulls-offs, a little bit of syncopation. Arpeggiating a C chord. Next line. There, we've got the C chord. Now this is probably one of the toughest things, and I probably should have mentioned on the other one. I put a little marking there that this is with your first finger. Very important you get this A note with your first finger. It's very easy to want to get it with your middle finger, but if you get it with your first finger, then you're ready to get this D chord shape. And I switch back to my third finger when I'm going this rundown. Then a D chord. Okay, back to this G, and I'm holding the whole G here. But not the top note. I don't really need the top note because I'm hitting that high one. Wanted to throw a G7 in here, so I got a G7, just the top strings. And we have the C chord. G chord. This is an A. Well, it's technically an A sus 9. And then this D chord over A. And I just add the A in there because I want it to be a little thicker, right? Then we got the last B section here. More rhythmic variation, connecting notes. G7. And that's the end of that first pass. There's a lot of this kind of like picking pattern, and it's a very useful picking pattern that I love to do, and I tried to keep it the same through this first half. It's that these kind of like upward strokes. So you get this, right? That's a really nice one to practice. Then we've got this, again, this kind of bluegrassy sound of connecting the B to the A with this B flat. Lots of that in there. Okay, let's go on to the tougher of the two variations here. This is the second time I pass through it. Starting with the A, throwing up the line there. It's not so important that I'm holding the chord at this point, but this is what this line sounds like. Mess that right up. Okay? So again, lots more syncopation happening here. Pull-offs. Adding in that B flat a lot just to get some more bluesy notes. And again, my strums are a lot more syncopated. Right? I also pick pull off into that one. Again, adding a lot more notes. So that E note. Okay, let's go to the next line. Hammer on in here. This again, I'm going to point out, I put a 1 there with your fingers there. It's very important to get that with your first finger so that you can get this D in there. So. Leave that little pickup for a second here. Again, it's that G chord at the top. So notice C chord. I'm into the D chord already. I'm just holding that D. Then here is a kind of a pentatonic line where we add a bunch of chromatic notes. Right? And we kind of circle around this B. We want that B note there, but we're going to go, instead of just hitting B or going 1 below B or 1 above B, we go 2 below or 2 above B and then 2 below there. So that's the kind of an enclosure tone. That's kind of nice. Okay, now we're going on to the next line here, but we're going to start with this da-da-da-dum. Okay, so... Couple things here. We got this nice pickup. Took me a while to kind of come up with something I liked here, but we're bending this B flat up to this B. Very bluesy sort of thing. Kind of like that. Now here we've got, I wanted this D note, but I'm sick of hitting that string open, so I'm going to slide to the D on this string. Again, circling that E. I want that E note, but I'm going to hit the note above it, the note below it, into it. Okay, now here's just a crazy line I'll play. Okay, so a couple things here. Hammering onto that E, which is where we normally started, and then jumping up to C, which is also what we did. The rest is like just adding connecting notes. 2 notes below that F sharp that we wanted to go to. This is just straight down from the D, pretty much chromatic. And then I didn't want this note. That song's a little too strong for me. So instead of hitting that A flat, I hit this F sharp. Hit the G note. This is a little tough to go from this G to a D7, but if you're not going ridiculously fast, you can make it. Okay, on to the B section. This part took me a while to come up with something that I liked at all, but I'm relatively happy. It's a little tough to play. I don't know if I did the greatest job, but let's hear how it sounds. It goes like this. This is the first line. 3, 4. Okay, so we just have this kind of contrapuntal line starting on here. We're just going da 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 da. Well, that B is kind of in our head, and if we hear that rhythm da 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 da, this is almost like barbershop quartet harmony for me. Hearing that note, but like it is kind of a counterpoint line. One is staying at where it's at, and the other one's going down. So we have this oblique motion. I guess it doesn't have to. I mean, I don't want to call it counterpoint. This may be a bit of a stretch. Okay, then here, keeping one finger down to let that ring, where we do the same thing again, then sliding up to here. Now, I really like doing this sort of thing is we're going to a G7, but instead of just getting the high G7, I'm going to hit that F in the bass because it's distracting and I like it. And then this, give it a tug. Okay, going into the C chord. Okay, so here we're on that C, but I've kind of switched it up in a way. Last time in the first arrangement or first half, I tried to keep this picking pattern very, very similar. Here it kind of switches up. So if you find that tough, that's the reason, because it's a little different than the one we practiced. But I have that kind of top melody line. And then I add kind of a harmonization here where I have that E chord. And the reason I'm doing that E chord is because now we go to this A7 chord, which brings us to D, right? Now noticing what that is that's secondary dominance, right? So like for example, when going to a G, the strongest chord to go there is the 5 chord, the D. And that's what they're doing here with this A chord. The A chord doesn't really belong in the key of G, but it is the 5 chord. It's a very strong sound to resolve to the D. So when I was picking, well, what chord is going to help us get to the A? Well, I think, oh, well, what's the 5 chord of the A? It's the E chord. So that's why I have that E chord going to A. All right, okay. Then we have, this is basically the same. Okay, then we have this little triplet thing. So here, just kind of a simple connecting B to a G, and I'm doing it harmonized. I keep those fingers going the whole time. If you're not used to chord note triplets, sometimes that's awkward for people. It's kind of a bluesy rhythm. We haven't done it yet so far in this tune, so it kind of strikes me as, whoa, what's happening? It's kind of nice to make the very end of it something a little new. I bring my thumb up here, but you could use a different finger, G7. Okay, so now let's take a look at this last line. This last line is where all the crazy reharmonization comes in. So we could think about it in terms of the chords. Actually, let me play the line once quick. Okay? So we could think about it in terms of the chords, right? It's C major, then C minor, then G, then A7, then C7, D, and G. But that's not really how I'm thinking about it. Like, those are relatively common chords you could throw in there if you're used to this. I have that vocabulary of understanding how to throw in some reharmonizations. The way I'm thinking about it is I wanted to create kind of a descending line. Right? So I just kind of figured out one that worked relatively well with the melody that I was doing. And I also wanted the melody to go up a bit, so it doesn't do that completely, but... Oh, sorry, wait, ba ba da da doo da da. So I have those two lines, right? This one's going so the idea being one's going down, one's going up. Again, that's that kind of counterpoint thing. So I wasn't thinking so much about the chords, but I do know kind of I have that vocabulary just by doing tunes like hearing, oh, we have the 4 chord, oh, we can put the 4 minor in there, right? As soon as I think of an E flat, well, what chord works good with an E flat in the key of G? It's that C minor chord. So doing a bunch of these kind of helps with that. So I found that one kind of fun. It was it's probably the toughest part of the tune to play with all of the big jumps. But it's a lot of fun. Okay, so that's that. Last thing I'm going to do here is play through it at a slow tempo. If you're just joining me now, tab's going to be here. I'm going to play through it nice and slow. But if you want a PDF, you're going to have to get that on Patreon. Consider supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to see more of this stuff, if you're enjoying this at all, I really appreciate the help. Anyways, here's Jingle Bells, nice and slow with the tab. 1, 2, 3, 4. small mistake there where I hit a B instead of a D. It's actually a relatively big mistake, but I was really thinking about what I need to make for dinner tonight. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this. This was a fun one to play. Till next time, bye.